September 26, 2018. That's the end of Sprint 11, and so that's going to be the release 0.8 on Friday. We can quickly have a look at. This was a document defining Sprint 11. One of the important things is the getting ready for the tech preview. And this is going well. And then some progress into continuous delivery. I'm not sure we made the progress we were hoping for. And then you'll see some in a demo that has been done, in particular on the overview page. If you look at the Kiali Sprint 11 board, there's still a lot in the backlog. So if you're not going to make it for the sprint, please remove them. It should not happen, but I mean, it's even worse if it stays there. In progress, there's also quite a lot to do for the last 2 or 3 days. Also, if you're not going to make it, if something is blocking, please raise it. All right, for this demo, so as I said, we'll start with sorry, wrong button. I wanted to stop sharing. So yes, Joel is going to start with the overview page. Then Matt, I'm not sure if you're up or not. It came up, yep. So I guess it's working. And then Pavel will do a demo of the integration of like Kibana with Jaeger. So all right, so Joel, you can share your screen and start. Yeah, I can't see you, Joel. You're muted. So shadow screen is in the middle of the screen on the top.
Okay, so I was muted. Yes, sorry. I'm going to share my screen then. Sorry, my voice is a bit weak, but I was sick yesterday. So you should be able to see my screen now.
Yes.
And this is the new overview page. So when you log in Kiali right now, it's the landing page. The first page that you see is the overview page. It shows the different namespaces that you have available on the cluster. And obviously, it only shows the namespaces that are not empty. So because in reality, there's more than just 3 in my cluster, but we show the non-empty ones. And there is the toolbar here allows to filter and to sort the different namespaces. So for instance, I can filter name of namespaces that contains only Istio. And I can also filter by health, like if I take all failures and I've got nothing now. So that, well, for the demo, I'm going to put some failure in one of the namespace. So I'm going to scale down one of my microservice. And here, so there's an automatic refreshing every, well, this is a Cadmific tuned to, now it's 15 seconds. We can also refresh manually. And we see here the different applications in that namespace that are going on failures. So my ball application is on failure, and the one that are related, there are some requests that are failing, so they are in degraded mode, and probably there's going soon to be on failure as well, and still some healthy one. So I'm going to show, if I sort by status, going to show first the namespace that have some failures, or I can reverse the order. And displaying last 10 minutes, for instance, is it used for the calculation of the health. So if I take like just last 1 minute, I've got 3 failures because the ratio of failures is bigger. Then what I have here is links to other places of Kiali. So for instance, I can click on the title of the code. It will bring me to the graph. Okay, I can click on the applications. So obviously it will bring me to the list of applications with a filter that is preset to the namespace where I clicked. So it's quite handy to go quickly to some subset of the all applications that are available. And here, the 4 icons that you see here, you can see that they are the same as the icons in the left menu. So if you ever wonder what it means, so of course there's a tooltip when you let your mouse over it, but it's the same here. So in some sense, the left menu can be like a legend for that. So we can go to the graph of the selected namespace, to the list of applications, the list of workloads, and the list of the services. For instance, here I got all the services for the namespace Istio systems. So it acts like a portal to the other pages of Kiali, and that's all visible. I can show you in this demo. There's a lot of work that was done in this sprint by the team about refactoring, so it's not visible stuff, but it was important to have consolidate the code base that we have. There's also another feature that is not merged yet, but it was for the sprint. So, for instance, if I'm going to some namespace where I have some data, and the metrics page here has been refactored. Especially this drop-down button here has been refactored. Before you were just able to show metric by local version, remote app, remote version, and response code, but now other stuff has been added to show the 999 quantile here in the histogram. So this is quite important when you want to really see the kind of maximum value that you can have for response time. And if the chart becomes too busy, like if I'm going to add a remote app and remote version and response code, you can see that it's starting to be a bit busy and harder to reason about. So you can also remove some quantiles here to show less data on the charts. And what you select here will be effective for all the charts, or the histograms at least, that are displayed on the page. And that's all that I have for my team.
Right, thanks. Matt?
Hi, hopefully everything will work this morning. I was having a little bit of some technical problems earlier, but I think those have been resolved. People can hear me and can see my screen. Perfect.
Yes.
So I'm just going to first bring up what we had in the last sprint for the look and feel of the Kiali graph. This is the view that we were showing from the last sprint. And we also kind of had our traffic animation looking like this during the when it's enabled, and also we didn't have traffic animation on the TCP connections. So a lot of time during the sprint we spent updating the look and feel. This is the new updates that we have currently on our graph. There's a comment in Blue Jeans. Oh, okay. So this is our new look and feel that we have to the graph. We've changed some of the shapes where some of the labels are to be more consistent in what they mean. We've also updated our animation quite a bit. It looks, I think, a lot nicer now. They're flowing a little bit faster, a little bit smaller here, and there's even one on the TCP connections. Something else that we've also done is we now have TCP metrics being shown in the side panel, which is a nice improvement there. I'll just turn off the traffic animation for now. Another thing that we added to the graph is being able to visualize services. So if you enable the service nodes here, you can see services now being rendered in the graph, such as product page is using review service to go to the reviews applications. Another part of this is that you can actually double click on a element in the graph and get what we call a zoomed in or a detailed view. This is handy if you have a complex graph and you want to get a view that gives slightly more information without everything else kind of crowding around it. So that's how we have this view in here. Something else that we added, yes, and then even on, so in this graph you can see the services in here. Chat. Okay, I'll ignore the chat for now. If anyone has any comments on there, I'll please speak up. So that's a lot of the changes that we've had in the graph itself. You'll also notice that the controls around the graph have been reworked, as well as having some of the options now down at the bottom, such as changing the different graph layouts. So you have different options here that you can select. With that, another thing that we've worked on is being able to show egress in the graph. In previous versions, if you were using egress, it would not show up. And in the version that we're currently running right now, we do show an egress. Egress currently looks like this, where it's going to a what looks like a service node in the graph and tells you which endpoint it's accessing. We've also had some improvements to performance. In the past, we were running what we call our appenders, which go through and augment data into the graph. We found that some of those augmentations took a bit more time than took time, and you may not require them on every request. So now it's more based on needs. If you do want to see certain information, it'll be pulled in. If you don't, it will not be. We've also done some work on allowing a user to specify a custom prefix for accessing Kiali. This means instead of accessing Kiali directly on /console, you can put something else in front of there, like /Kiali/console. Useful if you want to go through and have Kiali available through something like the Istio gateway. Another thing that we've done is to add or to update our checks for Maestra. If you were running Maestra in previous versions, you might get an error saying that the version of Maestra that you're running is not supported. That's been updated in our current version so that running with Maestra will no longer have that error pop up. We're checking for the version of Maestra now. Go back to the overview. We've also spent some time looking on being able to run Kiali with reduced permissions. Right now, Kiali needs to have access to a lot of things in your cluster. This is also important for getting things, the total list of namespaces that you have available. But there's been some work that will allow you to reduce the permissions running on OpenShift. This currently does not work with Kubernetes, but on OpenShift, you should be able to reduce the permissions. I'm going to try and do that now, but this was a problem I was having with my system a little while ago, where I couldn't actually log into OpenShift with the OC command. And it is still not working. Okay. So I can't demo that right now, but with that option, you'd be able to specify which namespaces you wanted to add, you want to have access to. That would control things such as saying in the all namespace, it would only give you the namespaces you currently have access to. Going into the applications or overview or any of the other pages would also be restricted just to those namespaces. And I think that's it from the Saturn team. I'm not sure if I've missed anything. There's quite a few teams we had. The legend. Did you not have the legend in the last sprint?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
It was in the last one. So legend, this is what we had in the last sprint, so it was in there. Current legend is a bit different now. We have a bit more information in here, but I think that was covered during the last sprint. If not, here's our lovely legend that we have that you can turn on and off at the bottom there. Anything else? I know we had quite a few changes that were going on with the graph during the sprint. Okay, I think that's it for me.
Okay. If no one else has anything to add on Kiali itself, then we go with Pavel on Jaeger and Kibana. Yeah, go ahead, Pavel.
Hello, I suppose you can see my screen.
Yes.
So I will be talking about the latest Jaeger release 1.7, and this release includes some major UI changes and also some backend changes. UI changes I will show in a bit in a demo, and on the backend changes there are two quite big things. The first one is Kafka ingester, which is like a binary which sends data from a Kafka topic to a Jaeger collector. Then the second quite big feature is we changed Elasticsearch mapping to be able to better support queries in Kibana UI. And we also changed the index configuration. So now you are able to deploy multiple Jaeger instances which sends data to the same Elasticsearch. So going to demo, I will be demoing basically this blog post, which will be published on Jaeger Tracing Medium. And well, it deploys a couple of Docker containers. The first one is Elasticsearch, then Kibana, Jaeger all-in-one distribution, and Hodrot example. Hodrot example is like an example application which runs in a single Docker container, but it simulates like a microservice-based application. So let's go to Hodrot. I would be using it just to generate some like real-world data, and here you can see 4 boxes. And when you click on it, it creates requests to the backend, and the backend like simulates some requests going to different services, even though they run in a single container. So it creates some requests, and now we should see some tracing data in the Jaeger. So let's look at the first trace, for example, and this is the first span representing like the whole invocation of the request. And if I look closely into the text, I will see there is, for example, this HTTP URL. And what often happens is that you would like to get all of the spans which have this URL. So in Jaeger, you can actually get the URL and try to create a query which contains the URL. So we can do something like http.url and use the URL value. And as you can see, we get only one instance because often these URLs contains query parameters which are kind of random. It can be like for example, pagination value or like time-based query parameters. And so there is really no way how in Jaeger you can, for example, like a wildcard in this query to get like all the URLs for this, like all the spans for this URL. So people often ask like, we would like to use this query in a Kibana UI. So what we did, we changed the Jaeger index mapping to be able to support queries on stem tags and process tags, which are stored in a span. So let's go back to the full URL. And in Kibana, I can just post it there and get the span representing that invocation which had the URL, right? But this is like looking for in all the data containing in the span. So I can look only into the tags. So I can write something like tag dot http at URL. It also returns the same result, right? Because the query is basically the same. But I can use the wildcard on the nonsense query parameter, and it returns all spams containing this URL. It's pretty useful, I think. And as you can see, there is this customer parameter, which is also value, right? And in Jaeger UI, it's almost impossible to find like all the customers because we are not able to use wildcard as a customer parameter. But actually in the Kibana, we can write such a query. I have already prepared it. And just open the query, and here we can see it's using slightly different URL because this is for the customer service, not for a dispatch service in the UI. But using this query, I'm able to get all the customers which were used in some way. And well, this is just get me like the raw results. And in the Kibana, we can create a visualization based on this filter, which supports also aggregations, and we are able to aggregate based on the customer ID. So here I can see like the customer 567 was present in the URL 33 times. Another customer 28 times. And like the great feature in Kibana is dashboards, and we can like combine different visualizations into a dashboard, and this provides us like executive view on a system based on the spam data from Jaeger. So the first one is doing aggregation on the customer, so it shows us like how many customers are present in the system. The second one shows the number of invocation per individual service. So this is the front end. Second one is a Redis service. And yeah, from the Jaeger, it's kind of like impossible to find out that information because here you can see only the spans. Well, you get the idea that for example, the front end service is like frequently invoked, but you actually don't know whether it's the case for all the requests. Then the third card shows us like different span kinds. So this represents client requests, and the second one server requests. Well, you may ask why the number is actually different, and it can be like we are calling some services which are not instrumented. It can be like internal service or some external services. And the last one shows us for example, the error number of error spans. This is basically everything from Kibana. And I will go back to Jaeger. And when I started, I mentioned that we did, well, not we did, but there were some improvements to Jaeger UI. And there is a new tab it's called Compare. And in this tab, you are able to select traces and compare like their structure and how many spans they contain. So if I go back to search, I have to select some traces. So for example, let's order them also based on the duration. The longest first. And let's select, for example, this one. It contains 51 spans. This one 50. And a very short span with 51 times. If you hit the compare traces, it goes to this tab, and you can see like the structure of a trace and actually where is the difference. And you can see the Redis is shown in red, and it's because there is some difference. And well, this graph shows basically two information. It aggregates spams based on the service name, which is, for example, customer, and then the operation name. And the number here represents the number of spans in this aggregation. And here is -1, so it means that the B trace has one more span, or doesn't have one span compared to the trace A. And the percent is actually there are a lot of spans, so it's actually percentage difference is 8. So here I can also select the different trace. And here we can see there is actually no difference in number of or structure of the trace. And there is, even though like there is pretty significant difference in duration. So this tab really shows you like the difference in structure and number of spans in two different traces. If I can also select this one. Now it shows that the Redis is green because the B trace, there is one more span in the Redis and get driver operation. Okay, this is everything that I have for today.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we'll go over the hour, but Matt has one more thing to show. At least it will be in the recording.
Yeah, sorry about that. So before I said that the reduced permission stuff was not working, that ended up being a problem on my end, and I figured it was running wrong with my command. So right here in the graph, you click on namespaces, you can see all the different namespaces that are currently in your OpenShift cluster. Same thing if you go into the config page, for instance. So here's the all namespace showing everything that I have access to, where we have detected entries in our mesh. I can now go through and remove some of my permissions here. And now you can see that this has changed. So now if I go to namespaces, I can see that I have access to my namespace called demo front end. And that's it. Same thing if I go into Istio config, I'm going to see demo front end here as well. And the overview, I'm only seeing that in there. So we have this now in the graph. We've restricted it down to just one namespace, which is demo front end. I can also go through and give permission to the user for something else. So I'll grant permission for, let's say, the reviews. So I can't show my screen right now because I can't share my terminal for some reason, but all I'm doing is just using the OpenShift RBAC or the Kubernetes RBAC to add permissions to the reviews, and now reviews pops up in my graph. Same thing in the dropdown, you now see that reviews are in here. We have a new little locked icon that you can see on these graphs that indicates that it's coming from a namespace that you don't have access to, but you can at least still see that the connections in this namespace that you have access to are going to these other external services. And same thing if you go into the Istio config, you can have these drop down here. I don't have any configs for these two namespaces, but it's showing blank. But that's it. That's all I want to show with the reduced namespace. Thanks.
All right, thanks. As I said, we're finishing Sprint 11 on Friday. Sprint 12 starts on Monday. So feedback is always welcome. Yeah, so thanks everyone, and I'll make the recording available on YouTube. Thanks, bye.